I'm going to try that screen share thing where I'm going to put my presentation mode down there. I'm trying to screen share. There we go. Okay, well, hey guys, welcome to 2022, and I hope everyone had a great Christmas and stuff. Technology drop-in Thursday. We've got some fun stuff happening, and of course, it was Christmas, so not a lot happened during Christmas. However, I got to do some playing with stuff just before Christmas, so we'll talk about some of that. Here's what our agenda looks like for today. So we got this stuff here. I'm just going to zoom up here and make this font bigger. There we go. So the first thing I wanted to talk about was the Google security review. And if I can just ask whoever's who's ever got their mic on, if you don't mind just muting yourself, that'd be great. So security review. If we take a look at this link here, every once in a while, Google sends out this great notice to say, hey, you know what, it's time to review your security preferences. That includes two-factor authentication. That includes looking at what data Google is collecting on you. And if you just go to myaccount.google.com, you get all this information here. It shows you your web searches, and you can go in and manage that information. So if you've been doing web searches that you don't necessarily want to use, you can get rid of that. There's information there about what commands you use with your Google Home Mini. So that's stuff that you might want to erase or whatever for whatever reasons. Oh yeah, and don't let me forget that. I want to tell you about my big purchase for Christmas time with my Google Home Mini. But for this kind of stuff here, I'm going to go to data and privacy. I'm going to go right to the bottom. Come on, manager security. You're going to do this to me again. Let's go back here again. There we go. And when we get down to this section here, so it's on app services, but third-party apps. So sometimes you will launch an application and it will say, hey, do you want to log in with your Google account? And you say yes, and you do all that login stuff. This here gives a list of all that stuff. And what has happened in the past is sometimes some of these apps, we find out that maybe they're not as safe as we want, or else maybe you've just got a whole whack of these things and you don't even remember what they're doing, but they still have access to your Google Drive and whatever you've given permission to do. So every once in a while, I like to go into here and go through and clean out the stuff that maybe I tried this app and it didn't work for me, and then I just never used it again. So these are all the apps that I've given permission. Down at the bottom here, I recently was experimenting with Vite. I'm not interested in it, so I'm going to remove the access because there's no point in giving it the access when it's not going to do anything for me. So that's one thing that I really recommend, that every once in a while, and hey, it's a new year, it's a new time to start, go through your security options, go through and check out all those things to see what else that you don't use. Because the next time you use it again, so for example, Label Maker, I used that once a while ago, I'm going to remove that. If I need it again, it's going to pop up and say, hey, do you want to log in with your Google account and give us permission to do that again? I can say yes, and then it'll come back into the list here. But if I don't use it, let's clean it out, because companies sometimes get sold to other companies. There was an extension that I used to use. It got sold to someone else, and then there were all sorts of privacy breaches that came up. So I just like to go through and clean that kind of stuff up. And the link is, myaccount.google.com. You can take a look at that. Google Meets has new video backgrounds. So what does this mean? Well, nothing exciting, but kind of cool. So let me just get this started here and see if I get the screen to work here twice. Come on. Here we go. It's coming. Takes a little time sometimes when I got two things running. Oh, it was working just before the session. And okay, well, imagine, if you will, if you go to Apply Visual Effects, there's a bunch of new video effects backgrounds here. So some of them are just like an office space. So there's a winter one, and it's just a nice office space with the snow falling. One's got coffee cup with us. And then there's some animated one. There's a spaceship one with two aliens flowing past you, which is kind of fun. So if you're in Google Meets, you can have these newer video ones that they've added just before Christmas. And they're kind of fun. I wish I could. It was literally working like 10 minutes ago. Google Chrome can identify any song in a movie while you stream it. I'm not going to go and do anything, but there, Shazam, which is an application that was purchased a couple years ago by Apple, basically listens to whatever music you're listening to and can tell you what that song is. I used to use it all the time when you're walking through a department store and you go, oh, that's a great song. I wish I had that. So you can Shazam it. Apple has built that into its iOS, but they've also included a Chrome extension so that if you're watching something like a YouTube video or Netflix or whatever else and a song comes up, you can get that extension to identify the music. So it's really kind of slick. I imagine it's probably a lot like my mobile device, but I'm not going to go demonstrate that. I just thought that'd be kind of fun for you to take a look at. So that's what that is. WebEx before Christmas announced immersive sharing. What is that? It's basically what you see right now, where I sit here in the corner and behind me is the screen that I'm working on. That's immersive sharing. So it is now available to WebEx. WebEx also has new layouts. It allows you to zoom in. So instead of having 15, you can go to 10 viewers or whatever in your meetings and stuff. There's a link there to the WebEx update page, and it'll tell you and demonstrate all that stuff. But you can play around with WebEx and take a look at that. Microsoft Forms now allows you to do collections. So what that means is if I go to my Microsoft Forms, typically I have all these files here. Now, these are recent files, whether I'm the owner or I'm sharing with someone else or whatever. These are just recent files that I've worked with. But if you scroll to the bottom, you can see all my forms. So these are the ones that I have created. And there's a link here that said new collection. So rather than having this long list of all this kind of stuff, I can now go in and create these collections. They're folders, and then move these files into there so that I'm grouping everything that I want. Makes it easier when I'm doing a lot of experimenting versus forms that I'm using for a specific purpose. Nice to be organized. I rarely do it, but it's kind of nice to have those commands. OneDrive and SharePoint image markup. So what that means is if I'm in OneDrive or SharePoint, and I go into this file here, I've got some new tools up in the edit here. I think I showed this a couple months ago, but they've expanded the tools that are available. So now that I go to edit, again, I can adjust the balance on this thing. I have different color adjustments, so I can go and do that. I have different filters that I can apply. Granted, this is just a color bar, so you're not going to see anything major for differences here, but if you had a proper document, you'd see vivid cool be kind of neat. But also markup. So now with markup, off to the side here, I've got different items that I can use for drawing on, and an eraser and stuff like that. And then on the top, there's an option I can either save it, so it's making changes directly to the file I'm working on, or I can save a copy of it so that I'll have a different version. Not sure how much often you're doing a markup like this, but hey, if you grab a picture and save it, that's kind of fun. Where this is kind of handy though is if you have your mobile device, you can take pictures and have them uploaded automatically to OneDrive or SharePoint. And that way, that makes it a lot easier when you're in a group of people. It's like you take a picture and then you can quickly either mark it up. I think you can mark it up on your mobile device. I'm not sure about the Android side, but you can mark it up on your mobile device, or here again, you can mark it up in the desktop. Anyways, new fun all the time. I'm just going to quickly pop back to the chat and see if anyone's got any questions. I don't see anything offhand, so it's good. Microsoft Teams has a walkie-talkie function. So this is kind of weird because when we talk about walkie-talkie function, I have a different idea of what that means. So if you're an iPhone user and you're in Messages, you can record a short burst message. So I can sit there, hold the button down. Hey, Randy, I'm going to be late. Can you help me with something else? Let it go and send that off. So it's just sending off that recording clip. And then Randy can send the same thing back as a recording clip. Microsoft now has that built into Teams, so you can just go back and forth. For some people that don't want to do type, or if they don't want to do voice to text, I typically do a lot of voice to text with my devices. But some people like to just talk and then send that off. When I was in Panama a few years ago, I was talking with some people, and that was the standard way that people communicated. They didn't use texting. I mean, they used the text tool in Messages in Apple, but they would just record their voice, send it off, have the recording come back from the other person. So that's what they mean by walkie-talkie. It's not like you click the button and go Roger, Roger, over kind of thing. Okay. So that's the fun stuff, but now it's the cool stuff. Power Automate just before Christmas, and this last week I've been playing around with it. I put a video up in the chat. If you haven't had a chance to look at it, please do. I'm going to demonstrate what you can do with it. And then there'll be a session probably in about 2 weeks time, 3 weeks time. I'll schedule something for a hands-on session. What this is how we can take these automations to do stuff with our files that we have stored in Microsoft Teams. And you've heard me talk about this in the past. So here's an example of a file that I got in SharePoint. I've created these extra columns here. I've created one called status. This is the faculty member that's been assigned to this file. This is the deadline. I have a calculation here that checks, is this overdue or not? And what I want to do though is I want to be sending messages out all the time to people. Well, if to do this, I would have to open this file up so I can edit it, grab this link here, copy, paste, go into a chat, send it off, et cetera, et cetera. I don't want to do that. That's a lot of work. So you can use automation, and what I'm showing you now, I've done with 2 templates that I've modified. It's really easy to do, and if you sign up for the session, I'll be showing that. But here's what happens. So let's take this first item here. I just want to post this to my team. So I have a team. Where did he go? Profile stuff. No, back here. So I have this team that I'm part of. I got to bring it over to the other screen here. And I'm part of this playground team, and I have a channel here called course updates and stuff. And this is where we go in and we're working specifically on those files. I want to send a message to that group about this file. So I just go into here and I have this automation I created called post a message. So this is what happens. It goes through, it launches this little piece. It's automatically going to post my message with a link to the file into that channel. So I'm going to go in here and say, I need someone to review by Friday. And I'll run the flow. Now this particular one just posts it in Teams, but you could also send an email to the group or what have you. But there it is. I included a subject line, feedback requested, because that's typically what I do with that. I need someone to review. That's the message. There's a link that takes you right to the social work. And I can customize this whole message here. So as we're going back and forth, if I wanted to include a link to something else in that message, I can do that. Now, the next thing I want to do is I've gone in, I've made some changes into here. I now need this faculty member to come in and do their work in this document. So again, I just created this automation. I go in there and I just say, send this to the faculty member. So the faculty member, as we can see, is my test account person there. And it's going to run the same thing. And I'm actually just not going to put a message in here, so I'm just going to run the flow without it. And let me pull up. Come on, stop being. So this went to this account here. Where'd it go? Come on. Hang on, now I have to pull it up. Outlook and bring the page over. Outlook.com/mail. Sure if that will work. All right, let's see what happens. So what's going to happen is it sends the message. So this message is I've customized. So every time I run that script, it's going to have the same message in there, whatever it is. Notice there's the smiley face, your course outline's ready for update. Hey, and it's grabbed the person's name. All of it based on what this data here is. It grabs their email. Here's the message that I've included. Here's something about a link, and there's the link to the actual document for them to work on. Notice here, the status got changed, sent to faculty. So I know that anyone else on my team that's working on it can see that happen. I can also go in and set another automate just to say, hey, you know what? Your stuff is overdue. So can you make sure that you get this stuff done? Because we have a deadline of this date here. And we'll quickly go through this. I'll run the flow. Now look at this. Notice I got this little angry face there. Hey, course stuff is updated. And there again, another message. I just threw in a quick message. I didn't spend a lot of time formatting that. And in a second or two, this will switch back to overdue. I just have to refresh it, but I don't have time. I want to go to the next step. Oh, go away. So the next step is I also want to now send an apply. So I've got a thing here that'll send apply. I'm not going to go through the whole process, but I have set up myself as a manager that I get a approval request. So a link that says, hey, Trevor, here's this file. Here's a link to it. Review it. Can you approve or not approve it? There we can see it change there. And then I went, so this, as soon as I send that link off, it changes this to sent for approval. And then as an approver, if I go in and say, yes, I approve, it will change the status to complete. And there the whole process is done. At no point in time do I need a separate spreadsheet to track where everyone's doing and who's in charge of it, what is this thing overdue, where are we at? All of that's done directly with the files that we use in SharePoint. So I wanted to show this. There is the video that goes into a little more depth if you want to take a look at it. But just so you're aware of it, because this is the kind of stuff that's going to just change things of how we use files in SharePoint. And like I said, keep an eye out in a couple of weeks and I'll be doing a training session on that. All right, and let me just check for a quick question or something there. How do I move files or folders to other locations? Let me finish that 2 seconds. I just want to see if there's anything else on anything that I've covered here. So that's it for what I've covered today. Does anyone have any other questions? Okay, so before I forget, I'm just going to tell you my Google Assistant stuff. So if you've got a Google Mini or any of the Google tools, or even on your phone, if you go to Costco, you can buy like the 4 little Wi-Fi plugs and stuff, and you can do all sorts of wonderful things with programming it. There's also a bunch of apps that come out. Now, my wife and I, we sleep with the windows open all year round. Like when it's minus 35, I might have it only open this much, but we do have the windows open year round because we like to be cool. So, but getting into these foam beds with the memory foam are rock hard. So I went and bought a heating blanket, a Wi-Fi enabled heating blanket. So now I can use my Google Home Mini to do things like, hey, Google, warm up my side of the bed. Or, hey, Google, turn off the stuff, or put in schedules and stuff. So at 7:30, it always starts to warm the bed up. So if anyone's interested, let me know in the chat, but I will do a session and show you some of the cool things you can do with Google and those plugs. Like 4 plugs for $20, that is cheap. And you can replace, for those of you that used to go on vacation, remember what that used to be? When you left the house and you had those timers with the little pieces that you pull out, you can use your Wi-Fi plug to do the same thing, and it's all enabled. And then you can have a message show up from Google telling you, hey, this plug's been turned on, or this is done. I have a printer down in the basement, so I go, hey, Google, turn on the printer. So the printer comes on. I can send the commands through. But that is Google Home. That's what I'm talking about. It is Google Home and the Mini and all that stuff, because Google Assistant is the tool that's pushing that. Okay, so that was that part. Let me go back and answer the question here was, how do I move files or folders to other locations? Pretty easy. So let me pull this up. So I'm just going to take this file here. I'm going to highlight it. If you right click on here or use the drop down menu or use it at the top here, there is a move to or copy to. So you can do either one. You can copy it or move to it. I'm just going to use copy to for now. So by default, it goes to your current library. And when it talks about a library, we're talking about a document library, which is a part of SharePoint. I can go into OneDrive and move it over to OneDrive, or if I'm in OneDrive, I can move it somewhere else. Or I can go to my current library, so that maybe like my current library here is course information. There might be 4 folders in there. So if I say current library, it would be course information, and then I can move it into a different folder. In fact, let me just check. Yeah, so in here in the course information document library, I have 2 folders, so I can move it up into the HR folder if I wanted to. The other thing that I can do is I can move it outside of that area. Whoops, where'd I go? Move to, copy to, sure. Now, here's a list of, come on, yes, you can. While it waits, there'll be a list of all the different SharePoint sites that I have access to. Not all of them, but some of them will list up there. Go away, let me try this again. Try again, copy to. There we go. So there's a bunch of the sites. Now, I might belong to a whole number of them, so I might have to go to browse sites to see them all. But this is ones that I've tagged and said I want these to show up. To make it show up easy is if I go up here, do you see where it says following on your SharePoint site? If you click on that, then it will automatically show up in that list. I still have access by going to browse sites, and I can find any of the SharePoint sites that I'm involved with, but by following it, it shows up in this list here. Makes it a lot easier. And that's pretty much done at a file or a folder level. You don't see those options. You know what? If you're at the top level, off to the side here, sometimes it says see all. Click on that. It's for whatever reason, the way it's set up, you click on that, you should be able to see all. Or it could be that you don't have permissions set up to do moving. So that's the other thing. So a lot of it has to do with what your administrator has set everyone else up, what kind of access to set them up. And if you want to, book some time with me, we can chat afterwards after I'm done the training session here. Okay, any other questions? Any questions about anything? This is your time. No, okay. So let me stop the recording there, and then we can just go one-on-one with whoever wants to talk.